stuck in it.
It's hot.
Hot right now. There's explosions everywhere. Ah! It's okay, you guys, it's okay. Oh my God, oh my God. The last thing I remember hearing Daniel say was, "Don't worry, I'm gonna find you."
We have a real problem. Whole neighborhoods being incinerated by wildfires we cannot stop.
I had to walk away from everything that we have ever known.
6 of the 7 largest wildfires in state history have happened in the span of just a year.
The idea that we can fireproof this huge landscape.
That's impossible when you've got thousands of homes in the fire's path.
So I'm glad we got out with our lives, you know? It's the most important thing.
Residents are now left wondering if there's anything that can be done to keep their communities safe.
I didn't spend decades learning about all of this to not have people use the science.
The research shows us that we have opportunities. So here's what it looks like. We have these square blocks carved out of the boreal forest, and we ignite that with essentially a mobile flamethrower.
I get really excited about burning houses down.
There's nothing that influences fire like fire.
Oh, I love that sound.
In a few short years, we could maybe eliminate communities being destroyed by wildfire.
But if we continue our current approach, wildland urban fire disasters will be inevitable.
All right, well, now we are joined by filmmaker Trip Jennings of Elemental Reimagine Wildfire, the trailer you just checked out. What a powerful and very informative documentary on wildfires, forest fires, and really our relationship with them, which I don't think a lot of people think about. Before we kind of really dive into this really sensitive and informative topic, how does it feel doing years of research, all the work you put in, coming out on the other side now to see the rave reviews you've been getting?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it's, you know, for any filmmaker, it's like so good to just make it to the finish line. And we really, you could hope for a lot of people to see your film, but what I've been so excited about and so far that we've really been experiencing the success of legislators and decision makers watching the film and taking a lot of interest in it. And, to the point that we are like really talking a lot about future policies with people who can make the difference. And so, the experience of like bringing those folks together with the people in theaters and of course, in streaming, who are going to see the film, like that's the thing I'm so excited about right now.
We love to hear that. And I think it's great because you're talking about politicians and everything. And, some politicians are very hit or miss. And I think at the end of the day, in general, we're in this TikTok generation, right? Or social media age where we need to make things more digestible and everything. So when you were making this documentary, were you worried at times like, okay, is this going to click with everybody? Like, did you have to kind of go through several rounds? You're like, all right, we want to make sure, I don't say it's idiot proof, but in enough layman's terms where people can really understand and get behind what you were putting out there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think anybody who's trying to inform people using a feature film should like constantly be asking yourself, why do I not just have a TikTok channel? And which I was. And I think that, I love being able to put it all together in one piece at one time. Because I think that's how you end up, with one understanding in the beginning and one narrative, right? Because our narratives around fire, our cultural sort of 100 years of upbringing around thinking about fire is what we have to change. And I think it just does take a feature, but starting at the beginning and then just an hour and 20 minutes later, I think you can really get so much deeper than in the beginning. So yeah, you can use a lot more terms at the end than you can in the beginning. And we were really conscious of that too.
What made you decide to do this documentary? And when you had the idea for it, was it what you intended? Like, did it end up being that finished product, or did you learn along this way, like, holy crap, this is totally different from the understanding I had of fire from when I decided to do this in the first place?
The reason I decided to do this was the first time in Portland, Oregon, where I live, that we really, Portlanders kind of looked up and we saw ashes raining down on the city, covering our cars and our roofs and our windows, was in 2017. The Eagle Creek fire was burning 40 miles away in a place that I just love, like a place I love to go hiking and kayaking. and it was very, near and dear to my heart. And people, I had produced a student film in college 15 years earlier about a fire. And so I knew like a little bit, 15 years old knowledge, but still enough to say, wow, I think that the conversation that's happening publicly, decision makers, politicians, general public, social media, wherever it's happening, there's a big gap between that and all of the opportunities that we have from the new research, the best available science. And so I went into it thinking like, okay, this is a film about we need more fire. Fire is good for a lot of landscapes. And here's how we get more fire on the ground. And that's still sort of part of it. But then a few months later, a researcher said, hey, when it comes to homes and communities safety, what you do more than 100 feet from the home doesn't have much to do with whether or not it burns in a fire. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm sure you're wrong, right? All of this stuff that we do in the forest, thinning and burning and prescribed burns and all of that, it's good stuff. But I was like, that obviously that has an effect on it. And so anyway, I basically spent 5 years proving myself wrong and him right. And so it took a very different course than I expected at first. And so that's what you get in the film. You get sort of my experience of like learning and unlearning a lot of the things I believed when we started the project.
How important was it for you to kind of end on a high note? Obviously, action needs to be taken by the people in charge, the decision makers, everything else. But, was it a conscious decision to say, all right, no, we're not going to end this on, all right, the world is screwed?
Well, I think that from the beginning, even with my initial kind of concept of the film, I was like, there are a lot of doom and gloom stories out there. And fire actually has this fascinating, positive thing. And part of the unlearning that we all have to do is, fire is bad. It means that the forests are gone. It's even in the way we talk about it. This fire destroyed 270,000 acres, right? Those acres are still there. It didn't destroy them. They're different. They changed real quick. And we don't like that as humans, right? We like stability. So yeah, I think that there's also this sort of genre of techno optimism in terms of, in the climate space, which I really steer away from. And so, yeah, I think it's really a cool, unique story in this space that we get to say, no, there are real ecological and socially positive outcomes. And I work on climate issues all the time in my day job, reporting on it for PBS. And I've got to say that this one I'm so hopeful about. I really think that in 5 years, with the work that we're doing with this film and so many other people and scientists and advocates, I think we're going to make some serious progress. And I don't feel that in so many other issues.
Great to hear. And man, when you had one of the scientists, it was one of the scientists who said, I didn't spend all my life, doing this research, everything just for it to be, I'm paraphrasing here, just to be like disputed. And it's tough. I mean, that's another thing to combat, anti-intellectualism, anti-research, and all that jazz. How do you and your crew kind of stay sane in your cause? Not just, of course, promoting this film and the great message it sends, but just in general in your day to day. With there are a lot of smart people. There are a lot of people who are willing to learn, but there's also a lot of people that are just fine to let things go and not do anything about it.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference though between what's actually happening on the ground and some of the conversations that we see on Twitter, for example, right? Twitter, thank goodness, isn't boots on the ground. And there's great stuff on Twitter, recent changes be what they may. But I think what helps me just stay hopeful is the fact that there are so many smart people on the ground doing really smart, good work that's informing how we're going to live in a hotter, drier world in the coming future. And that's not being stopped by sort of there's negativity. Yeah, there's people like, I don't believe in science. And some of those people have a lot of power, but boots on the ground, there's a lot of smart, really good people. And that's often where the work gets done.
Well said. Very, very well said there. Now, you mentioned PBS. Of course, you also have worked with Nat Geo for many years as well. So were you always drawn into, environmentalism, climate change activism, all that jazz. Were there any other paths that you saw your filmmaking career going before heading down this path?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out just as a whitewater kayaker, right? And I started just like a skateboarder or snowboarder or whatever. I was watching all the cool action sport films, and I was just like, I saw the people running waterfalls and traveling all over the world, paddling new rivers, and that was what I was passionate about. And I was like, I want to be those guys. That is what I want to do with my life. So I got a camera. This was in high school. I borrowed a camera, and my first stuff that I ever made was two VCRs and just of me and my buddies kayaking. And that actually turned into my job. Right out of high school, I started doing promo videos for kayaking companies, and I made a couple of just adventure films that did pretty well. And it was doing that, traveling, going deep into the backcountry in Papua New Guinea, in Congo, South America, all over the place, to just for this sort of self-indulgent voyage, this experience, this journey, to then bring back and just say, yeah, we ran some sick rivers, bro. It was not enough for me. I needed to get deeper. I was so curious and fascinated by the places I was going. And I felt like the ecosystems, the countries, the places needed more of a story. And that's kind of where I started, delving into more documentary stuff. I tried to incorporate a bunch of it into action sports videos, which is now more of a thing. It wasn't so much then. And then I just realized, man, I'm having a lot of fun tickling my very nerdy side of my brain, doing these deep documentaries, this investigative work,
What was the most challenging aspect of filming Elemental? Was it tough to get certain people in a room? Did you find any pushback, from certain leaders? Anything that stands out to you in the process you're allowed to talk about?
Let's start with culturally, firefighters don't love media, right? In a lot of fire crews, there's a deal where anybody who gets interviewed and makes it into the press or makes it on TV or whatever, they've got to buy the rest of their crew a round of drinks. Right. So it's you have this cultural disincentive for people to even talk to the media. Right. So it took a lot of trust building, which I love to do. And, Jack Cohen, who ended up being one of the, stars of the film. Also, Bev Law, who you were quoting earlier, those are two scientists who have spent, they've taken considerable critique and just flack, in their careers, resistance, just from the good science they're doing, because it is counter to a long-standing cultural narrative, right? And so that's hard enough, but also I got certified as a firefighter just to be able to get in to film these fires. We were on the front line. You can see we're filming houses burned down. We're filming wineries and forests around us. So I had my fire shelter. I had my fire boots. I learned the whole deal. And it was just fun, and then waiting all night in the path of a fire to get the time lapse. It was full of challenges. I hope the next one's a little easier.
Hope it's a little easier, a little safer next time.
Indeed.
But hey, at the end of the day, you didn't make it. Trip, we really do appreciate the time. Before we let you go, why should people watch Elemental Reimagine Wildfire?
Because I think this is a problem that is only growing, but it's a problem that we have a solution for. It's also fascinating. We are like moths drawn to fire. There's a lot of cool fire in here. And to learn about our landscape and how to stay safe in a hotter, drier future, I think that's what we bring.
Definitely recommend people checking that out. And before we let you go, where can we find you online and where can we find you next?
Yeah, so elementalfilm.com is this website. Of course, I'm all over the social media, Trip Jennings Video, and also my show Weathered on PBS. You can catch every 3 weeks.